Todd Plants to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Dave. Great to be with everyone here today. Before I introduce our guest speaker, I want to take a moment to express my personal thanks to all the veterans here today. I certainly have been proud of my own service in public office and love what I've been able to do in public office, but I've always known that what I've done pales in comparison to each of you who've worn or those who continue to wear the uniform of our nation's armed forces. So my sincere thanks. The reason this kid from York had even the privilege of running for office is because of heroes such as yourselves who defend all that's great about this very special nation that we call home. I am honored to introduce Brigadier General Gerald Otterbein, a good friend and a true servant and patriot of our nation, currently serving as the Air National Guard Assistant to the Commander of the United States Air Force Special Operations Command in Florida. Jerry has served our nation in uniform for 30 years. A native of Williamsport, graduate of Bloomsburg University, the Air War College. He began his service 30 years ago with the Air National Guard here in Pennsylvania, where he served most of his 30 years, rising to the rank first Colonel and Wing Commander of the 193rd Special Ops Wing at Middletown, and then after that to Assistant Adjutant General of the Pennsylvania Air National Guard. Deployed many, many times. He could reference how many times, but not where or what he did, because they were all classified missions, but many times around the world with the 193rd, one of the most deployed units in our military, not just in the Air National Guard, but with our military in total. I won't list all the awards and medals he's earned, but just to name a few very well-earned recognitions: Bronze Star Meritorious Service Medal with 1 Bronze Oak Leaf Cluster, Air Medal with 1 Bronze Oak Leaf Cluster, Air Force Commendation Medal, and many, many more. Married to the lovely Nadette, who's here with us today. And Nadette, you may know, is some of you may interact with her. She's executive director of the Horn Farm here in York County, doing great work there. And the proud parents of 2 wonderful children. Their son, on the path to follow his dad as a pilot in the Air Force, begins flight school next Monday. Is down there getting settled in now. And an Eagle Scout. And their daughter, who's at Cleveland State as a junior, doing a great job, is a Gold Award recipient in the Girl Scouts. So truly a family of leaders and servants to our community. Please welcome Brigadier General Gerald Otterbein.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Todd, and congratulations on your recent election, York County Judge. It's great to be here with all of you. I'd like to thank Brad for the invitation to speak, and I'd also like to thank all of our veterans that are here. I would ask those of you that are veterans today, please go home and thank your families. We always forget the families. They sacrifice just as much as any veteran. So it's very important that we do that. We can't thank them enough. What I'd like to do is I'd like to talk with all of you for about 10 minutes about special operations. I'll touch on Air Force Special Operations Command, the 193rd, how the 193rd interacts with Air Force Special Operations Command. And then I'm going to talk to you about 2 events that I had the privilege of being a part of that has given me meaning to Veterans Day. And from there, we'll open it up for questions and answers. So anyhow, I'll start off with special operations. If we start from a corporate perspective, it starts at the top with U.S. Special Operations Command. We call it SOCOM, U.S. SOCOM. That is run by a 4-star flag officer who currently is Admiral Bill McCraven. Great guy, Navy SEAL, 60 years old. He's built like he's 30 years old. He's built like a tank. But just an amazing guy. You take Special Operations Command, and if you kind of picture it like a corporation, it's composed of divisions. We don't call them divisions, we call them components. But each of the branches of the service have a component in Special Operations. You have the Army, which would be your Green Berets, your Rangers, Delta Force, there you go. That is USASOC. That's what we call USASOC. Now try and not use acronyms that I don't expand out for all of you. USASOC, U.S. Army Special Operations Command. From there, you've got the NAVSPEC Warfare. That's the Navy Special Warfare. That's where you're going to find your SEALs. You've got the Marine Corps, what we call MARSOC, Marine Special Operations Command. Then there's a Joint Command, Joint Special Operations Command. And then you have the Air Force piece of that. That's Air Force Special Operations Command. We call it AFSOC. All of those components are commanded by a 3-star flag officer. And AFSOC is commanded by Lieutenant General Eric File. That's who I work for when I'm at AFSOC. AFSOC is it's a very unique organization. To give you perspective on size, U.S. SOCOM encompasses about 70,000 people. AFSOC has about 19,000 people. So it's a pretty big chunk of U.S. SOCOM. And they have a number of very important missions that they are responsible for. Specialized air mobility, precision strike, battlefield airmen, something we call ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. Got to think about this now. Command and control, agile combat support, and information operations all fall under the responsibilities of Air Force Special Operations Command. They have a multitude of aircraft at their disposal that they perform these individual missions with. AC-130 gunships. Some of you veterans probably remember that platform. It is an amazing platform with a tremendous amount of firepower. MC-130 Talons, which are an infill-exfil platform for taking special forces across enemy borders, low level, at night, 100 feet off the trees, and they can take special forces in undetected. MC-130 Shadows, which are a refueling platform that can refuel at low level. CV-22 Tiltrotor, also referred to as the Osprey. Some of you may remember this aircraft or seen it on television. It can take off and land vertically but fly like an airplane. Very, very effective platform. They have RPAs, which are remotely piloted aircraft, and it comes in 2 flavors at AFSOC. The MQ-1 Predator and the MQ-9 Reaper. And from there, they have what are called NSAV, non-standard aviation. It's basically like King Air's very, very small aircraft that they use for moving special forces from remote locations along with other classified missions. General File has a tremendous amount of firepower at his disposal, and they are deployed all over the world. As a part of the staff, I have an opportunity to sit on these briefings, and I got to tell you, it's like something out of a Tom Clancy novel. You go into a briefing room, they've got LCD screens up all over. They have briefers from all over the world, and they're telling General File where his forces are, where his aircraft are, what the status is, which ones are broke, when they're going to be fixed, where they're moving to next, where his forces are moving to next, what the objectives are. It is just amazing. Today, AFSOC is in 31 countries, and I can tell you that they are tracking down bad people every single day and taking them out. And these are people that want to do nothing but destroy our way of life and the things that we hold dear to us. So, information operations is one of the responsibilities of AFSOC that is performed by one unit and one unit only. That's the 193rd Special Operations Wing out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We have 2 members here, former members, Don O'Shell and Dick Sloan. It was great to see Dick. I hadn't seen you in a long time. It's great to see you. He gave me my probably one of my first flight physicals. He was a flight surgeon there. So it's great to see both of you again. The wing is a great wing. I absolutely miss being at the wing. I wish I could have stayed longer. 193rd Special Operations Wing flies EC-130 Commando solo aircraft. Their main mission is electronic broadcast. They're basically an airborne television and radio station, along with other things that they can do, like jamming, etc. And 1,800 people in the wing, so it's the third largest wing in the nation, and the only unit that does the electronic combat mission for AFSOC. They have, I think I said, 7 C-130s, 3 of which are hardwired to the electronic platform, and then the other 4 are used for standard C-130 operations. In fact, we're actually trying to convert that unit into an MC-130-like mission with a roll-on, roll-off electronic package, which will make it even more versatile. The Air National Guard is gained by AFSOC, even though it is the Air National Guard is very much like the National Guard, in that you have 2 missions, or 2 roles. You have a domestic responsibility. So if there is a riot, flood, hurricane, whatever, the governor can call out the Air National Guard and the National Guard to deal with that situation. And then we also have the Title 10 role, our active duty role, where we deploy along with our active duty brethren, and basically when we're over in theater, we're indistinguishable from anybody in the Air Force. So it's a dual role, but in reality, with the 193rd, because of the uniqueness of the mission, probably 95% of what we do is always on the active duty side. The wing itself is located in 3 areas: Harrisburg International Airport, State College, Pennsylvania, and Indiantown Gap. We have 12 squadrons. The flying operations is at Harrisburg International Airport, but the wing also has Red Horse Squadron, which is a combat construction squadron, engineering installation squadron, a band. They've got an air operations center. It's actually a pretty dynamic organization. But the flying operations based in Harrisburg is pretty much a Title 10 active duty type mission. In fact, they're over in theater right now flying. So it's really been a privilege for me to have been a part of that wing and to have commanded that wing. Right now, I was up at state headquarters for a short while, and then went down to be a part of the staff at Air Force Special Operations Command. And I can tell you that it's just been such a thrill to be back in Special Operations and to see all the great work that those men and women are doing. And they do it every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The business component in the Air Force. And to put it in perspective for you, right now we use a term called dwell ratio. That looks at the amount of time a soldier and airman is home versus the amount of time a soldier or airman is deployed. And the standard right now for the Air Force is about 1 to 2. So for every year an airman would be deployed, he'd be home 2 years, or she would be home 2 years. In the Air National Guard, the deployment ratio right now is about 1 to 5. That's a conventional Air National Guard unit. So for every year deployed, home 5 years. AFSOC right now is on a 1-to-1 dwell ratio. That means their airmen are gone. For every year they're home, they're gone a year. With many of their jobs, many of their individual roles that they play, less than 1-to-1. There are a lot of soldiers and airmen out there that will be deployed for 6 or 8 months, home for 3 months or 4 months. And oh, by the way, while they're home, they're spinning up, getting ready to go on the next deployment, and then right back on the road 6 to 8 months again. So you can imagine the stress on the families trying to support some of those special operators. So it's, like I said, it's a real privilege for me to be a part of AFSOC and be a part of that staff and watch all of that taking place. I wanted to briefly step away from special operations. I wanted to talk to you about 2 events that I had the privilege of taking part of, and I wanted to share that with you. The first, when you make general officer, you have to go to a general officer school. It's a requirement. It doesn't matter whether you're Air National Guard, Air Force Reserve, or Air Force, you have to go to this general officer school. and we refer to it affectionately as charm school. It's about a 2-week course. The first week, the spouse goes along, and they take you through a multitude of briefings. You visit different venues. It's supposed to give you a broader perspective of the Air Force corporate structure and culture. And on the second week, we went out to San Antonio, where we got to be with the basic trainees, had dinner with them. But then we went to the San Antonio Military Medical Center. It used to be referred to as Brooke Army Hospital. Some of you in the Army may have even visited that place. It's an amazing facility. Absolutely first-rate medical attention. But when we went into the medical facility, I was struck. We were on the bus, we drove in, and they have large areas there, exercise facilities, fields, etc. And I was just struck at the number of young, I'm talking 19, 20, 21-year-old soldiers, Navy, Marines, Air Force, young men and women walking around with prosthetic devices, missing limbs. Absolutely blew me away. And for the first time, I realized what a terrible toll these IEDs, improvised explosive devices, have taken on our soldiers and our airmen. It was just heartrending. And we had an opportunity to interview. They had a panel of 5 of these young men. 3 were regular Army, 1 was in the Army Reserve, 1 was in Air Force. I would say the oldest may have been 23. And they each took turns talking about what had happened to them and the type of medical care they had gotten. And I was struck by 2 things. The first, when the Army Reserve soldier had an opportunity to talk, he was missing a foot. And he was almost humbled by the fact that he had only lost a foot. That all of the other soldiers that were there were missing a limb, 2 limbs, 3 limbs, and the injuries sustained were some of them were just, burns and multiple contusions, and as you could imagine. And he felt kind of guilty that he was only missing a foot. The other thing that struck me about these soldiers, after we were done talking with them, interviewing them, we'd all asked them, what did they want to do after they got out of the hospital? Every single one of them said they wanted to get back to their units, and they wanted to get back to their buddies, and they wanted to get back in the war. And I was just blown away. So, takeaway from that. The next time you hear somebody talk about this generation, that they're not patriotic, that they don't care about this country, you can tell them there's nothing further from the truth than that. This is a great generation of young men and women that we have today. Second major event. Happened in September. 28th Division National Guard is stationed up at Indiantown Gap. And they put on a memorial ceremony. It was a beautiful day. Blue skies, probably about 60 degrees. And the 28th Division were unveiling for the first time 3 granite obelisks. And on these obelisks were engraved the names of every Pennsylvania Army or Air National Guardsman that had lost their lives since 9/11. 53 names on these obelisks. And I got to sit in an area with the uniformed officers, soldiers, with some special guests, and then to our immediate right were the Gold Star family members, those that had lost a son or a daughter. It's probably about 100 of them that were sitting off to our immediate right. And I've got to tell you, they read the names and they struck a bell. And you could hear the sobs to our right. And I can tell you there was not a dry eye in the place. It was very, very moving. So, I wanted to share those 2 events with you to let you know that even though this isn't World War II, this isn't, these wars don't touch us as a community the way that the big wars did. I can tell you that the sacrifice is very, very real for the families that do lose members or have members that are injured or wounded. And so the war continues. If we step back to special operations for a moment, I can tell you that many of you know that the war in Afghanistan is winding down, and that by 2014, we're going to be completely out of Afghanistan. And so what does that mean for special operations? Does that mean you would think that their dwell ratio would probably improve? It won't. It actually will probably get even busier. The special operations is referred to as low density, high demand, LDHD, and you can never get enough of them. You can't train them fast enough, and we use them up and burn them out, and that's the constant struggle with special operations. But I'm here to tell you that it's an amazing organization doing great things, and as I said, I am just very, very proud to be a part of special operations. So what I'd like to do is, I think I'm good on time. I'd like to go ahead and open it up for any questions that you all may have. Yes?
Yes, General, thank you for being here. It's very interesting to hear you talk. I'm curious to know what your view is of drones and military strategy. How has that changed military strategy?
Military strategy as far as the withdrawal out of Afghanistan?
Battlefield strategy.
Drones. Oh, very interesting. Drones, we refer to them as RPAs, have grown exponentially in the Air Force. They are truly amazing, capable platforms. And when you think about it, I mean, it's pretty amazing that an airman can sit in an operating booth here in the States and be controlling an RPA halfway across the world and be just as effective as if that individual was sitting in the cockpit of that airplane, of that flying machine. It has revolutionized and changed the Air Force in ways that have yet to be fully understood. They're great platforms. I truly believe that the F-35 and the F-22, which are the latest fighters that we have today, I really believe that they will be the last manned fighters that we will ever see. That it will be very much like the movie The Terminator, that it will be man versus machine. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Why risk a soldier as a captive who could be used by the enemy for whatever? I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. RPAs are here to stay.
Are you seeing or foreseeing any effects on your units for the budget sequester?
Oh, sequester. Maybe I don't let Congressman Platt's It is, sequester is, it's a game changer in a big way. I've never seen it like this. I went through the mid to late 90s when we had a contracting military budget, but it was nothing like this. The only way the Air Force, if sequester stays in place, the only way they're going to be able to meet those budget requirements is to take out entire fleets of aircraft. They're already talking A-10s, all of them gone, along with all of the infrastructure and logistics that goes with that platform. KC-10s, gone. 40 C-130s out of the AMC fleet. They're already figuring they're going to be gone. It's huge. People don't realize that it's not just sequester. 3 years ago, the Department of Defense voluntarily took a $500 billion cut in their budget. And then you're getting sequestration on top of that, another $500 billion. That's $1 trillion over 10 years. And that's a huge bill to pay. And I can promise you, you're going to see and hear a lot more about this in the next coming months when they start rolling out the FY15 and FY16 program memorandums.
Do you envision the 193rd Aviation Mission ever being replaced with pure technology?
We're in the process of kind of trying to do that now. The broadcast platform, the hardwired C-130s, they're very expensive, and they only do one thing. Now, they do it extremely well, but they only perform the one mission. So my predecessor and my time as wing commander, what we envisioned and sold to Air Force Special Operations Command was a design for an electronic package that can do maybe not everything that the solos do, but a degraded capability that can be put on a pallet, rolled into the airplane, used. After the mission, you take it back off, and now you've got a C-130 that you can use for specialized air mobility, ISR, all of those other requirements that AFSOC really needs. And so you have a truly multi-mission capable aircraft. And it's going to happen. It's the sustainment trail alone on that EC-130 was millions of dollars that can now be used to procure these roll on roll off packages. So do I see it ever completely going away? No. It's a great mission. I think it'll be around for a long time.
Are you able to comment at all on the interaction between special ops, military, and independent contractors, as they're referred to, I guess?
Yes. Independent contractors and civilians, the special operations could not do its job without them. They comprise a very large piece of special operations. I can't get into specific numbers because, to be honest with you, I don't know. I do know that there are a lot of civilians. A lot of them are prior military. They have the expertise and the history that we oftentimes need when we're dealing with issues, particularly budget issues or procurement issues. And so they become very valuable parts of the entire enterprise. So they're here to stay. I don't want to say they work cheap, but oftentimes they do. They help with as far as the overall budget, and they bring a technique, an expertise that is absolutely needed in the military.
General, can you speak to the special ops in Benghazi?
Not really. Anything else? Please.
This may fit in somewhat the same category, and I can understand if you do not respond to it, but I read recently some very disturbing reports supposedly on senior commanders being either forced out or for basically being very blunt about it for political reasons rather than service that they're performing. Can you comment on any such thing? Is that political rhetoric, or is there something to it?
Well, at least from what I have seen, there have not been any removals without due course, without representation, and certainly there has to be merit to any of the accusations. I think so much of it today revolves around the media, the impact that the media brings to any kind of a charge, and it's if you're a general officer, you've got to act like a general officer, and you have to be very, very conscientious of what you do, what you say, and how you do it. That was part of the GO school, the General Officer School. We spent many, many hours going over how to stay out of trouble. Not as easy as it looks.
I'm not sure if this is exactly in your lane, but sitting next to the other components down in Florida, do you see the same growth coming with ground vehicles in terms of the RPAs or being remotely controlled?
Well, that's a little out of my lane. That's really more on the Army side. The air doesn't really get involved in that too much. But to answer your question, yes, from what I've read, I do believe that remotely piloted vehicles, whether they are airborne or whether they're on the ground, will continue to grow and be a part of whatever military engagement we're involved in. You bet.
Former Speaker, York County One-Star Admiral Chip Miller is involved in the RPAs with the Navy, carrier-based. Is that wholly separate from Air Force RPAs, or is there some coordination where Air Force RPAs are working with the Navy in the carrier-based?
Really, it comes down to procurement on anything dealing with the Navy and the Air Force with regard to RPAs. They would be operating MQ-1s, MQ-9s, the same as the Air Force. So when you're purchasing those RPAs, obviously you get a better price the larger the package that you're purchasing. And so it would be along those lines, trying to save money, that you would have the coordination between the Navy and the Air Force. Okay, I think I have time for maybe one more.
Jerry, as I was driving in today, listening to NPR, they were talking about the Afghan Air Force, and apparently, you know, we've given them, you know, a couple 130s, and they were talking about training the crews over there, and they're flying various missions and trying to adjust to different conditions and emergencies and arrive on time wherever they were headed for. I just wondered if you had any insight into, you know, how successful do you think you know, the training of the Afghan Air Force is going to be?
Well, it's always been a challenge, and one of AFSOC's missions is training host foreign nations. In fact, the National Guard has partnerships with many of the foreign countries. Pennsylvania's partnership is with Lithuania, but more specifically to Afghanistan, it is a challenge to train them, to make sure that they're ready to be able to defend themselves when the United States steps away. But that's the direction that our leadership has decided on, and that's the direction we're moving on. They're going to have to step in, and they're going to have to fill the void when the United States leaves. Whether they'll be ready or not, I think only time will tell.
I think they were saying prior to these two 130s that they got, the only aircraft they had were single-engine Cessnas, I think.
Yeah, they don't have any of the fighter platforms. They do have helicopters. They have the C-130s. They have smaller aircraft as well. And I know that our folks are over there training them, trying to get them prepared for 2014. Okay, well listen, I want to thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure being here with all of you, with the 30th largest Rotary in the world.